Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Avery. I'm from Avery Academic Planning. This is another installment of a virtual information session series in which I'm joined by mission representatives from schools all across the United States, Canada, and Europe. These schools represent a wide variety of options for you and your family to consider as you begin the process, from liberal arts colleges to public or private research universities, religiously affiliated schools, women's colleges, and everything in between. And today I'm joined by Curtis Clarke from one of our Canadian universities, Dalhousie. So take it away, Curtis.
Thank you very much, Matthew. A pleasure to be here to talk a little bit more about Dalhousie to all your listeners and viewers. So Dalhousie University, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory because who doesn't like an origin story to start out when you're getting to know an institution? So Dalhousie is one of Canada's oldest institutions, actually founded way back in 1818. You can see what is now City Hall on the right-hand side, our original campus in downtown Halifax. But fun story, especially for your American counterparts. Dalhousie was actually established with funds from the War of 1812. So the British Royal Navy sent down a force to Castine, Maine, and ran it as a customs port. And part of the duties they collected was actually used by Lord Dalhousie to establish Dal in 1818. We were affectionately known as the Little College by the Sea because we are located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, steps from the Atlantic Ocean, which I'll get into. We've certainly grown a lot in that period of time as well, from that little college by the sea to an internationally recognized research and teaching and in learning. So today we're a mid-sized Canadian university, a little bit on the larger scale for US institutions of 21,000 total students. The major focus for Dalhousie is that undergraduate education. So as you'll see, almost 80% of our students are studying at that undergraduate in that first 4-year degree. We still have a ton of programs at the master's and doctoral professional programs, so really something for everybody as well. One of the really interesting things that students find about Dalhousie is how many of our students actually come from outside of our home region or province of Nova Scotia. Almost 60% of our student body does not call Nova Scotia home. So we have tons of students that come from the US, that come internationally from over 100 countries and every province and territory across Canada. And that speaks not just to the breadth and the depth of academic programming here at Dalhousie, but also the student experience that you get in a city like Halifax being a fantastic spot for students to study. There are over 30,000 students in the city of Halifax at one of 5 different academic post-secondary institutions. So there really is no better place for students to be in a larger city in Canada, to be by the sea and to experience life as well. So to give you a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with where we're located, our main campus here is located in Halifax. We do have a smaller agricultural campus of about 1,000 students in Truro, about an hour outside of Halifax. We are, as I mentioned, right by the ocean, steps from the Atlantic. Our campus, in fact, is only 250 meters from the Atlantic Ocean. So really excellent for students who are looking at programs like sustainability, climate change research, ocean sciences, marine bio, you name it. And that is kind of infused in many of our programs across a lot of different faculties as well. We're also a hub, so we fly to a number of different destinations, both in the US and Canada. So it is very easy to get to Halifax, counter to what people may think. So direct daily flights to places like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, about 25 flights a day, in fact, to cities like Toronto, about 10 to Montreal. So very easy for people to access Halifax. And I think one of the things that they find is it's a bit of a hidden gem for many students and for many people visiting for the first time. Very down to earth, welcoming people here in Nova Scotia. It's a city of about 500,000 in the greater Halifax area, and one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. So we see many visitors coming to Halifax in the summer and fall, which are fantastic months to be a visitor to Halifax, but also a fantastic city to be a student in throughout the academic year, regardless of when you're studying here, because there is so much to do in terms of walking on the waterfront boardwalk, as you can see some students here, going on the ferry over to our city of Dartmouth, lots of concerts, festivals, restaurants, shops, whatever you would expect in kind of that larger city experience, you will find right here in Halifax. When it comes to Dalhousie's programs, we have over 300 different program options that students can choose from. So really unprecedented choice for a university of our size. We are home to 13 different faculties here at the university as well. So no matter what you want to do, you're typically going to be able to find a fit at Dalhousie if it's the right university for you. As I mentioned, we have that Truro campus that focuses a little bit more on agricultural programs. So if you're really interested in things like landscape architecture or bioveterinary science, there's some programs there that are really good fits for students. They're also using things like drone technology on how to selectively spray weeds in different crops. So all kinds of really interesting mixes of what modern agriculture and science has for you. On our Halifax campus, we have the remainder of our programs, the largest faculties of arts and social sciences, business and engineering east of Quebec. So you're going to find, again, lots of choice. So when you come to the university, which may be a little bit different than the application process that you're familiar with, you apply directly to the degree program. So at Dalhousie, you don't apply directly to a major like some Canadian institutions. So you have that first year in your program to explore both in your faculty, and you're also encouraged in many cases to take classes outside of your main area of study. So if you're a student who's in arts, but also has an interest in taking an intro business course, or maybe you're looking at taking, urban planning, you have the ability to mix and match your studies quite well here at Dal. That allows students to then create degrees that are really interesting in combinations, things like theater and neuroscience or physics and music. So you're really able to pursue what you're passionate about and take whatever it is that you're looking to take and go do down the road. So lots of really interesting opportunities for students to consider here at the university. We're also enhanced by our partnership with a small liberal arts university called the University of King's College. So they're actually the oldest chartered university in North America back in the 1700s. They are well known for offering a great books first year style program called the Foundation Year, as well as a couple different departments at the university in history, science, and technology, early modern studies, and contemporary studies. So the benefit here is that Dalhousie students can take any of the classes that King's offers as seamlessly as just registering online. You can also participate in any of their clubs and societies. So it's that kind of distinctive small liberal arts experience, but also having that larger research intensive university next door in Dalhousie. So it just kind of expands what students can do and offers another array of choice right on the corner of our campus. In terms of what students can do outside the classroom, there is a ton of research that happens. So in Canada, the U15 is the top kind of 15 research intensive universities in the country, of which Dalhousie is proudly one. We are also the smallest member of the U15. And what that means for students is they have easy access to get involved in world-class research at the undergraduate level as early as first year. So we've had students that have gone and tagged groups of sharks off the coast of Nova Scotia. We have students studying social justice here in Halifax. So there's all kinds of really interesting areas that our faculty are engaged in, and this allows us to attract a type of professor to the university to whom that appeals. So it's a great fit for many of those students who are looking beyond the textbook and want to actually apply their learning with over $270 million in funded research happening here every year across absolutely every one of our programs. We're also very tied into sustainability, climate change, and environment research. So Dalhousie globally this past year ranks 90th in the world for teaching research related to sustainability through Times Higher Education Sustainability Impact Ratings. You'll also see there's a few different areas in which Dalhousie ranks globally in the top 100 as well. So if any of these are areas that are passionate or important to you, you'll find classes, you'll find students interested, and faculty doing really important research and engagement in these areas as well. So it expands what you're able to do beyond the classroom experience. We're also a really awesome options for students who are leaders in their schools currently or who are looking to get the skills to become future leaders. So Dalhousie was proud to launch about 2 years ago our Student Leadership Academy, which offers a number of funding opportunities for students to pursue leadership activities and training as a part of their undergraduate degree. So students coming into this can actually apply directly from high school. We have a cohort that will admit right out of high school in addition to your academic program that you're admitted to. You could be considered for entrance awards as a part of this, as well as having access to residence learning communities where you'll be with other students from the student leadership community. This is a three-tiered program that students would pursue throughout their undergraduate or graduate programs. They can do any one of those three or all three, depending on what their interests are, and it allows them to connect things like medicine with AI and data science, marine biology with governance, engineering and outreach, and more. So there's lots that this program will prepare students for. And again, open to any students. You can apply from high school or join it once you're at Dalhousie as well. Our campus is really well known for experiential learning, so we do encourage students to go beyond the classroom. Over 90% of our students participate in experiential learning, whether that be things like formal co-ops, internships, field courses, lab work. So that really does encourage students to get those real world skills that employers are looking for. In fact, our commerce program is the only business and program in Canada that is a mandatory co-op that has a 4-year business degree. But within those 4 years, students actually complete 3 paid work terms throughout Canada or internationally as well. So that's a great opportunity to get those skills and to earn a salary and make those professional connections. We also have some really cool field courses. So we have a seaside program in the summer where instead of sitting in a lecture hall for your classes, you're studying things like tidal ecosystems of Nova Scotia, marine mammals, where you're out on the ocean, scientific dive-in methods. So you're getting credit for these courses, but learning again in an applied way. So another really interesting option for students to consider. For students coming from away, we do guarantee residence. That's a really big consideration for many students. So if you're coming directly from high school, or even if you're coming from a gap year, you have the ability to benefit from guaranteed residence here at the university. About 70 to 75% of our rooms on campus are single. So really high percentage for a university. And it is first come, first serve. It's an application you fill out once you've committed to the university, and you will have the ability to specify kind of what's important to you in a room, what room options are your favorite, and no two residences are actually the same at Dell. So we have very small buildings, we have larger buildings, we have ones that are more into school spirit. If you're into kind of that athletic culture, all kinds of different things that you can do here at the university, and they would all be fairly central to your classes. So you're talking about a 5 to 10 minute walk at the furthest from where you're going to be. We do also have dining halls on campus that are able to accommodate a wide range of dietary considerations. If that's important to you, feel free to connect and ask more if that's something you have questions about. Outside the classroom, too, students are very involved. So we have over 270 student clubs and societies. There's a huge club and society fair that usually happens the second or third week of classes every fall out on the campus quad, where you can learn and meet students who have similar interests. And that is such a great way to build that sense of connection early on in your academic program. If you're not for some reason finding something in that 270 and you want to start your own club and society, that's easy to do as well. It takes you and 2 other people to start a club and to be ratified with the student union. So lots of options, everything from Model UN to debate to pre-med to you name it, we probably have it. So lots of great options, as well as extracurriculars. So for students looking to do varsity sports, we have professional, or I shouldn't say professional, but varsity teams in cross country, track and field, soccer, hockey, volleyball, and swimming, as well as competitive club teams that compete against other universities within our region and things like football, cricket, field lacrosse, rowing, sailing, and so many others as well. We do have access to our athletic center for all undergrad and graduate students here at the university as well. That's had some really recent renovations, so a really fantastic facility for students to be at. Talking a little bit about what you can expect in terms of costs and fees. So, for any students that may have dual citizenship or have connections to Canada that are pursuing dual citizenship, domestic tuition and fees for a year of study varies between 10 and 14-ish thousand per year of study in Canadian dollars. So between kind of 7.5 and 10,000 US. Residence also varies based on whether you're looking at a single room, what sort of meal plan options you're looking for. So there's some variation there as well in kind of the 9 to 13,000 US range based on what you're looking at. For students that are international and don't have Canadian citizenship, Dalhousie has a tuition fee guarantee model. So the tuition fees you see here would be set for 4 years plus a year. So these would be the same rates that you would expect to pay each year of your program. So there is that kind of stability and predictability to your tuition amounts. So you'll see kind of in the neighborhood of about 27 to 35,000, depending on what you're looking at. So in many cases comparable to in-state options in some cases. For those that are looking at scholarships, we do offer scholarships both to domestic and international students, so everybody is eligible. Dalhousie really does offer 2 types. So one is automatic. You're assessed based when you apply for admission if you apply before January 31st. Those are solely based on your grades at the time of admission. So if you get one, you'll hear about that pretty soon after you've been admitted to your program. And then second, we have an application-based awards program. So these are usually our larger, more renewable awards that can go anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 a year each year of your program. And those are based on a combination of academic achievement, extracurriculars, leadership, and then there are other awards based on criteria around financial aid and a few other factors too. So you fill out that application to be considered for absolutely everything. For applications, if you're applying from the US, Dalhousie is a SAT, ACT test optional. The majority of our applicants do not submit the SAT or ACT. It's up to you if you choose to submit it. It is helpful for competitive programs where if you're concerned about specific classes or grades, does give us another test point, but it is optional. We are typically looking at 5 courses. So your senior level courses are what is most important to Dalhousie for admission. And we will look for generally about a B average for many of our competitive programs. That can vary again based on programs like most universities. One thing about admissions to Canadian universities is it's largely grades based. So you're going to find that for most of our programs, it is just based on these grades. If you meet the competitive criteria, you will typically receive an offer of admission. So there's no supplemental in the case of Dalhousie. There's no essays. There's no interviews. So it is pretty straightforward in terms of application. Our applications will typically open in early October of each year as well. The main deadline for many students, so most students are submitting their applications by February 15th for many of our competitive programs. Dalhousie does offer rolling admissions. So we will offer as soon as we start reviewing applications after the application opens in October. So some students hear back in as soon as 2 or 3 weeks, and it is not binding. If you apply early, you have time to figure out and weigh your options, potentially come for a campus tour, and figure out if Dal is going to be the right fit for you. Once you've decided that Dalhousie is the right fit, you submit your application deposit, and then you can start your next steps like applying to residence, making sure you're finishing that scholarship application, signing up for courses. So there is a lot of that then comes in the later half of the year. So regardless if you're accepted in October or whether you're accepted in March, you would have about until that early to mid-May deadline to accept your offer and still benefit from that residence guarantee that I mentioned early. So that timeline does differ a little bit from many US institutions. So again, if you do have questions or are running up against deadlines, you can feel free to reach out to our admissions team at any time, and we can talk a little bit more specifically about how that might apply in your situation. But with that, I wanted to leave it my contact information here. If you did have any further questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, and happy to take any questions that you might have, Matthew.
Yes, thank you very much, Curtis. So you kind of touched upon a little bit about how it's very kind of grades based as opposed to like the American model where they just look at everything under the sun, right? So
Yep.
when you have that more straightforward approach, how does the actual evaluation go when you're not having to worry about or taking into account extracurriculars or writing?
Mhm.
So what would that kind of approach look like when it seems pretty cut and dry from our end of things?
Yeah, I mean, it does tend to be fairly cut and dry in many cases for many of our students that are applying to the program. So it does provide kind of that transparency, I guess, in the process for many students and looking at kind of what our competitive averages have been in many of the recent cycles, which is information that we can provide to applicants and typically do on our website there. So going into the application, they know if they're going to be kind of a fit or a cutoff. So in Canada, I find it's much more so about fit for a student than it is
Mhm.
about, that this 10% is going to get into the program. So that's one
Okay.
of the nice things as students, if they're finding a university that feels like a fit, they've looked at the courses that are required and the grades, and they feel like they've got that competitiveness, they've got a good shot at getting an offer from that university more so than kind of waiting to see and having to worry about all the extracurriculars and whether they've done enough APs.
Yeah. Okay. And my last couple of questions have to do with that stat that you showed having, was it 60% out of
Yeah,
grind? So
yeah.
here in the States, as you know, there is a in-state versus out-of-state
Hmm.
cost, right? But on
Yep.
the slide, I just saw domestic versus international. So if you were, whether you're living in Nova Scotia or
Yep.
British Columbia, you're paying the same rate.
Yeah, exactly. So tuition across the board in Canada is the same. There are some incentives from provincial governments to stay in state for financial
Yeah.
aid,
Yeah.
but the base rates are the same whether you're a domestic student from Nova Scotia or British Columbia. Yeah, the only
Okay.
differentiator would be if you're an international student.
Yeah. And then you kind of in that same vein, you talk about how it's people from all over the world are coming to campus. And I was wondering
Yeah.
if you kind of share with us a little bit more about how they interact with Halifax itself. You mentioned
Hmm.
how you're literally on the
Yeah.
bank of the Atlantic Ocean. So
Yeah.
I guess for
Yeah.
those maybe non-Nova Scotian students, whether they are Canadians or international, how do they engage with the city? And then after
Mhm.
graduation, do they typically stay or do they go back
Mhm.
to where they're originally from?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say definitely for students, it can be a bit of a culture shock for students. I don't know what they have in their mind when they're thinking about Halifax, but it's often a lot larger than people are expecting
Yeah.
when they initially come here. I don't know. I think some people get the misconception that we're the small fishing town that's on the coast, but yeah, really one of the larger, fastest growing regions in Canada. And in terms of how students engage with the city here in Halifax, like Dalhousie and Halifax are almost one and the same. Like campus
Mhm.
is a 10-minute walk from the downtown city center. So like your steps from like the Atlantic Jazz Fest and great restaurants and festivals and great cafes and whatever you could want. And it's really easy to interact. And I mean, one of the nice things about Halifax is there's a ton of cultural events. There's a number of different diaspora communities here in Halifax as well. So students tend to find their people pretty easily. And that comes with so many students at Dalhousie being from out of our province. That helps with some of that I want to connect with people because often students are like, I'm the only person from my state or my country that I know that's coming, and they find
Yeah.
their people pretty quickly once they get here on campus, which is really nice. Post graduation, it's definitely a mix. There are definitely students that fall in love with Nova Scotia, find work opportunities. There's a number of sectors that are really popular here in Halifax. And would choose to stay and look at things like postgraduate work permit opportunities or different options here. And then those that would take that experience and return home as well. So really good for students that are in both camps or maybe not sure what they want to do long term.
So you also mentioned kind of how there are some incentives that the provincial government does to keep the students
Yeah.
tuition wise in state. Are there any sort of similar things for keeping them to work and stay in
Mhm.
Halifax after graduation?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, there are different programs. So, within Atlantic Canada, there's a program called the Atlantic Immigration Pilot. So, depending on what kind of careers you're looking at, certain employers are hiring people in everything from IT to ocean sciences. And students going into those careers get some bonus points as far as priority processing goes for work permits. And then later on, if they're looking at things like permanent residency. So, there's all kinds of different pathways and incentives that the government here is really looking to retain talent that's been taught and educated here in Nova Scotia, but also potentially has really grown to enjoy the city and maybe wants to make that a new home. So that's definitely a priority in a number of fields here for the provincial government.
Okay, great. So as you see on the screen here, there's Curtis's contact information. So be happy to connect with you if you have any questions about the school and any other thing related to relocating potentially to Nova Scotia. So
Yeah.
yeah, on behalf of Curtis and myself, thank you for joining us.